Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, the various boards and committees representing the town of Grafton will conduct their public meetings and hearings via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. So with that said, I guess turn it over to you, Bill.
Well, I'll just simply open the meeting. Now it's 7:02.
7:02.
I'll hand it back to you, Paul, since you're the manager of this project.
Okay, so where do we begin? I guess we can begin where we left off. Jeff, you want to talk about the Yankee Engineering findings?
Certainly. They did 6 cores. They found the asphalt thickness to be about 2 3/4 inches. They went down a foot below that by hand augering, and they never got to the bottom of the gravel base. So appears to be about at least a foot of gravel there. We're calling it gravel. What they did is they took 6 of those 6 samples. They grouped by pairs the samples and mixed the soil together and ran sieve analyses on those. And what they found was that there was the sieve analysis. I thought I had the right information with me, but I don't. But they found that there's fines in there. Normally with gravel, we don't want to see more than 10% fines, and the fines of the silts and the clays. Silts and clays pass what's called the number 200 sieve. And the short of it is, guys, without trying to get too technical, there's some pretty good material below the walkways on the common. By today's gravel specs, the excess of fines being over 10% would make it something you really don't want to use for a base, but nevertheless, it's better than the native material that's there. From my experience of what I've seen for some other projects around the common over the years, and the fact that it's a tight glacial till. So there's a base material below there, and the question is whether or not to reuse it. I took a good hard look on the day I was out there to see the corings. I looked at, just judging from the age of the asphalt and the fact that it's, pretty competent just the same. There's some settlement here and there. And on the south end, it looked like there was settlement where the trench for the communications cable might be. But it wasn't terrible. You could consider reusing the gravel base rather than replacing it. And so in summarizing it, there's about 2 3/4 inches of asphalt. If you peel that out, take that away, might have to remove about 1 inch of gravel base so that you could reestablish finished grades by using the stone dust below the brick walkway and then brick for the walkway. Again, it's not the best material for gravel base, but considering the impact of the trees by excavating this out and replacing it with a slightly better material, you might be able to come out of this all right.
So one question for you, Jeff. What is it about the finer material that creates it to be less ideal?
It doesn't pass water as quickly, so it can retain water a little bit better. And what happens when that freezes, of course, it expands as it becomes ice, and that's where you get your frost heaving. And judging from the condition of the asphalt, that doesn't seem to be a big problem, because with frost heaving, you see a lot of breaks in the asphalt over time.
Is there any difference in response to the frost heaving between like brick and asphalt? Is one less prone to it than the other?
No, neither one, because the heaving actually occurs not in the brick or the asphalt or the concrete surface. It occurs in the soil materials below those surfaces. In the case of like gravel that can't hold much moisture and has larger voids than your silts and your clays, even if there's some moisture in there that freezes, you may not get the expansion that you have in the finer materials. The finer materials, when the water freezes and becomes ice, it could expand enough to push that material a little bit. And that's where you see the frost heaves, if you have a lot of material and a lot of frost.
Jeff, did you say that, excuse me, Paul,
That's all right.
that the people that did the corings went down 1 foot? Is that right?
1 foot below the bottom of the asphalt.
Yeah. And did they feel that the gravel might have continued deeper than that?
It may have. There's standard procedure that if there's a foot of material under something like this, they feel
It's adequate?
it's adequate as long as the quality of the material is all right.
Yeah, okay.
So the fact that we haven't really seen frost heaving being an issue up there could lead you to believe that it's not going to be an issue if we reuse that base.
If it hasn't showed its ugly head by now with the walkways that have been there, we'd be working on the same base material, the gravel base material, and replacing the surface. And, certainly you want to put some stone dust or sand under the walkway to level up the walkway. There'll need to be some fine tuning of grades here and there. In addition to constructing the accessible ramps on the west and the south end of the common.
Right.
But there's some waves here and there, so there's some fine tuning of the gravel. Where there's some roots that have swelled up into the pavement section or heave the pavement section, the contractor is going to have to be careful with how to grade to go over the roots without making a big roller coaster out of it, but yet trying to create a smooth surface and that's ADA compliant.
My thought is there could perhaps be some pruning done to the roots by an arborist. As long as it's limited to a small amount, it might not be detrimental to the tree or too detrimental to the tree to do that. And there's only, in my recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, if any of you have seen more, but I haven't seen a lot of that. It's more towards the ends of the walkways that I've seen it. I don't think I've seen too much in the middle or along it.
For roots that heave, there was one large tree up on the north end. Might have been tree number 29 and number 30, maybe even 33. There was a couple others, but that was one of the worst ones. And again, I'm thinking between a mix of trying to regrade the gravel base a little bit and still be compliant with our slopes and cross slopes and so forth. And possibly if there's one root that just sticks up really high that's limited, kind of in an angle like this, maybe we can just keep a little bit of brick out of there and use the stone dust and infill the stone dust right up to the top of the brick surface in a very localized area, a couple bricks long or 4 bricks long, something like that, at worst case.
So Jeff, this is John Morgan. With the base that's there, that we know that's there, does that support putting a brick walkway down?
I feel it does. I feel the gravel base is independent of whether you use a stone dust surface, a concrete surface, brick, or asphalt. You're trying to create you're trying to take the pedestrian loads in this case and vehicle loads if it were a road, and you're trying to support them and spread those where a tire is only so big on the pavement surface. You're trying to spread out the load to the underlying soils. The gravel helps do that. And so I think the type of surface you decide to put on it is pretty independent of any, the gravel. The short is I think you've got about as good of a gravel base as you can have, unless you want to replace it. And again, there lies potentially compromising the trees.
I mean, what if we were just putting something down brand new, would it have the same depth of a base, or would it be more?
No, I wouldn't, for something like this, I wouldn't recommend anything thicker than 12-inch. More often than not, we design for about an 8-inch base on walkways, 8-inch gravel base.
Good, good,
That's good news.
definitely.
I was happy with the coring because it takes the guesswork out of, is it worthy of spending money to replace the gravel base or not? And at the beginning of this project, the thought was, let's give it the best we can give it. And that's a brand new gravel base. So having heard from what the impact is to the trees and so forth, now we've got to weigh the alternatives and pluses and minuses of each when it comes to any kind of decision.
So the other thing we'll need is the input from Davy Resources. I did reach out to them. I didn't get a reply. So we should have the results shortly from them,
Okay.
which should give us some good indication of those trees that were in the questionable category. But I did let him know what our plans were, and what we were looking into, in the hope that, we would be able to use the existing base and limit any impact to the trees that way. But my question, and all of our question to them, really will be, about that pruning piece of it, because that'll be important no matter, whether we were doing asphalt or concrete or brick or whatever, that will need to be done. I don't see us getting around that piece of it.
And that's going to require some pretty tight coordination between Davy Tree and the contractor when the work's being done.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, our construction detail calls for a root guard running parallel to the walkway. I think it was 18 inches deep. As you're talking with Davy, we can change that construction detail if Davy either says eliminate it or make it less tall, or the contractor's got to refrain from cutting any roots and has to cut their root guard over and around the roots. The large roots are there. I don't want to see the contractor go through and just blindly, hey, there's a piece of wood in my way, I'm going to cut it out of here so I can put my root guard in.
Right. Okay, that's a good point.
Jeff, can you explain what the roof guard is and what the material is and so forth?
I believe it's some kind of metal, maybe aluminum. I'll see if I can't get the plan open. But these are put in place, they're driven into the ground so that as the roots of trees or shrubs grow out, they hit this surface and can't go horizontally. So they either go up or down.
Gotcha.
Did
You say they're 18 inches deep?
That's what I'm looking for, to see what we have on the plan at this time. That's what we've used on the past on other jobs. And I could look into what other heights are available.
I know I understand the purpose and that it can be helpful, but the fact that would require us then digging again, which we're trying to avoid. Is it
18.
necessary? Is it necessary? I mean,
I'm not sure. I think when this project got kicked off, that was the intention. And we were assembling the plans to
Right.
try to put a bid set together. My feeling is that if through consultation with Davy Tree, they feel it's either one, not necessary, or two, should be a different size or something like that, we can adjust these plans accordingly.
okay, that's good.
We're
input.
showing this to be, the root guard to be the top of it 2 inches below the finished grade, and the root guard being 18 inches tall.
But
And we did not call out a specific material.
so that's digging almost 2 feet
That's
Doing
correct.
on both sides, the whole length. I think we want to avoid that.
So again, as we make the final round of revisions to these plans, I'd like to, little details like this, I'd like to get them right the first time through and avoid making changes at last minute as you're going out to bid, or even changes after the bidding's underway.
And if we're going to include the services of an arborist in there, do we include that in the plans too? that they'll need to have an arborist on site? Or is that something that we hire separately and ask them to coordinate with? And I almost think it might be harder to get them to coordinate with the arborist if it's not in the plans.
Well, Andy might be able to help us out with this a little bit, but I'm gonna give you my opinion first, is that you've already engaged Davy Tree. You've got some good working relationship with Davy Tree. They know the site. If this goes out to bid, the contractor can bring in any arborist that they want. And make a good chance it won't be Davy Tree. And so you got someone starting fresh. If we put language in our plans that the owner, Grafton Historic District Commission and the town of Grafton have an arborist and some work needs to be coordinated with them, we make notes on the plan to such, and that way you can continue to have that relationship with Davy Tree, and just, it means that the contractor who gets the project has to put some time, figure some time and money for coordinating. So
Yep.
I think that's going to be easier than losing control altogether of.
Yep, totally agree. That's definitely the best way to do it. It's pretty common for the town to have their own consultant that the rest of the team has to work with. So yeah, I think that's definitely the best way to go.
Great, thanks,
Okay.
Andy.
All right.
Good. Andy?
I have a similar question that we'll get to a little bit later when we talk about lighting. All right. So, what do you guys think? It sounds like brick is still something we can do. That's been our goal all along,
Correct.
barring anything changing what Jeff has just given us from Davies. Do you think we should move forward with that?
I do.
I think so.
John?
I'm debating, to be honest with you, that it may not be a bad idea to get another option or two to see, first of all, whether or not we like a different material and whether it's more cost effective. I mean, I like the brick, but it may, as long as we're talking about it, it may be worth looking at another option or two, just to either totally rule in or rule out.
My thought is the town voted on what we presented. We presented brick, barring a reason why we can't do brick. I think that's what people expect and what we should do. I mean, we knew it was expensive going into it and we budgeted accordingly. So if cost is the only factor, I'd be hard pressed to look at something else.
I agree
And
with Paul.
We feel that at this point that we still have the money in the budget for brick, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a situation where, a different surface would do better based on what we see for the base that's there, that would be a different story. But from what
Yeah.
we are told, it really doesn't matter what goes on top of it. The base is good for all of them. All right.
Brad, how do you feel?
As Paul said, I mean, that's what it was approved by the town.
Yeah.
If cost is the only problem there, I don't see why we need to go through other options. It's if like we said, it doesn't matter what's put on it at this point.
Andy, I have one thought. I know in some projects in the past, we've had, and I'm forgetting what the term is, but it's an additional piece to the project that is bid separate, that you can choose to move forward with or not. And usually that's been something completely separate. Is there a way to do that so that, your main bid is for the brick, but then as a separate one, what would it cost if we went with an alternative, say, colored asphalt?
Yep, so that's a bid alternate. A bid alternate, so you can definitely do that. You could say your base bid is brick, and if you wanted to have a bid alternate as replacing the brick with asphalt, you could do that. And the contractors people bidding on it would bid on both, and you get a price for both.
That might not be a bad option in the
Okay.
event, which sometimes happens, guys, that they come back with a amount that's higher than we estimated.
Right.
Right. And you can make that alternate any way you want it to be. If you wanted to say that it was going to be replaced in total with asphalt, or if you wanted to say some percentage would be asphalt instead, or if you had something specific that said the first 40 feet at every entrance was going to be brick and the rest, you can basically define your alternates any way you want.
All right. That's obviously more work for you, Jeff, though, right? Because then,
It's a little more work, but yes, we've done projects with alternates in the past, and the Grafton Common project a few years ago, we actually had some alternates in it. And then we've got to make sure we're clear in one of the bid documents where we explain how the bid's going to be awarded, that it's going to be, these are the rules of the game as far as whether it's the lowest bid with or without the add alternate is the awarded bidder, so that there's no perceived manipulation of the numbers by the owner to pick the contractor they want based upon the bidding. In other words, if the base bid comes in and company X is the low bidder, you want to define the rules as to what would make you want to go to the add alternate. And if company Y becomes the winner of that, you want to make sure you avoid a protest. So
I would think that we could say, if the brick ends up being beyond what we've budgeted for,
Right.
that would be the basis for looking at the add alternate.
Yes, we've used language such as base bid within I think we had one with 4 alternates, and it's basically how much can we get for our money? You start with the base bid. Do you have enough money to go to base bid plus alternate 1, base bid by alternate 2?
Okay.
We can work on the language. It's not extremely difficult, but the devil's in the details with that.
So John, would that address kind of what you were talking about?
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, obviously we would want to, map out what would be an acceptable alternative. And, I don't think we need to have, several of them. I think just, 1 or 2, just to your point, if the numbers come back and they're beyond what we have budgeted, then we should have a plan B. But let's agree what plan B and plan C would be.
That's a great segue, because I think Jeff has done some research into that.
I saw that coming. Yes, I was hoping to avoid that discussion altogether tonight.
Sorry.
That's okay. Alternative surfaces. Concrete, colored concrete, stamped and colored concrete, asphalt, colored asphalt, possibly stamped and colored asphalt, and even the crosswalk materials that were installed 2 years ago. Those are expensive, but where the gravel base is not being replaced and it's merely a laminate that goes over the asphalt surface, this could even be something as far as, remove the entire asphalt that's there and replace it, or possibly mill, shim, and provide an overlay, and then the overlay could either be stamped and colored, or it could be regular asphalt with the laminate that's on the crosswalks. My point is there's a number of alternatives. My next piece of investigation was going to be to try to figure out relative costs with these different alternatives. Without spending a lot of time, I want to get an idea of, orders of magnitude, how much can be saved or how much more will it cost, so that we could better get you guys an idea of which ones you want to consider from a cost perspective. Having looked at the crosswalks, those are 125 mil thickness plastic. It's called thermoplastic. It was applied by a company that specializes in specialty asphalts, colored asphalts, and these laminates. It was fresh asphalt. They put down some kind of adhesive, laid out the panels, actually cut them to fit, and working with the patterns and all that. And then heated them up to about 400 degrees or something like that. And I can tell you, after they were put in May 2018, obviously subjected to a lot of traffic. They're in great condition. I see that cracks opened up. There were cracks in the asphalt, and they opened up in the laminate as well. The point is, the laminate is very well bonded to the asphalt. There was a small failure over at the crosswalk between the Grafton Inn and the library. That looks to me that it was due to the asphalt material underneath that section and not to the laminate bonding. Just based on what I looked at. I haven't investigated that, but I saw that when it occurred or shortly thereafter. So again, the company's out of Framingham. They're called McNulty Paving or something like that. I was able to track down who they were from some of the information I had in the files. And my next step, if the Historic District Commission was even thinking of pursuing any of these specialty asphalts, I'd reach out to them to see if we can get some idea of general costs.
Yeah, I had done research into the other types of surfacing back when we were arguing for the brick. And what I recall is that the stamped, and I don't recall seeing anything about stamped asphalt, so that's a new one to me. But my recollection is that stamped concrete, the cost is pretty close to what the cost is for brick, just because it's a very labor intensive process to put in the stamping. One thing that you brought up that intrigued me as a possibility was an asphalt that was colored. And you talked about using a finer grade asphalt with a light kind of tannish color to mimic stone dust. That sounded like it might be a viable alternative, and you could do brick at each of the entryways, then transitioning over to the stone dust looking stuff.
Certainly could. I was thinking maybe a light gray, because usually the stone dust we see is
Okay.
light gray, but
All right.
the colors.
I'm
up-
colorblind, so.
The colors up to the Historic District Commission. We're limited by what the suppliers have.
Yep.
There's a company in California that I found some information on. They sell a dry material that someone would have to purchase, the contractor have to purchase, bring to the asphalt batching plant, and they mix it into the asphalt when the asphalt's being blended. And it gets dumped in the truck, brought to the site and spread. You'd only color the top course, the finished course. You wouldn't cut, there's no need to cover a binder course if we do a binder course. There's also a material, and I think they had more color selections whereby you'd pave it like you normally do and then apply, like seal coating a driveway. You apply it in that, whether it's spraying or screeding, but you apply it in that manner. And they had a few more colors to choose from.
Would seem like the former one that you talked about where they blended at the plant, that one would be longer lasting because it's not just it's on the top course, but it's mixed in that whole top course, not just spread across the top of it. Because I
Agreed.
did read that a lot of these colored asphalt and colored concrete tend to fade, and that there's a sealant that needs to be applied to them on a regular basis to maintain that. So I'm wondering if the one that you're talking about where it's mixed in at the plant, if maybe there's less of that fading since it's throughout.
Good point. I would suspect maybe less. Even the plastic crosswalks, they have the color throughout. So as they wear, they still show the color, but I'm sure the color changes a little bit, but I'd like to think there isn't the fading like a painted surface or.
Right. So knowing that time is of the essence, guys, I don't think we can afford to look at every option. I don't know how you want to proceed. Do you want to try and narrow it down tonight? Or do you
Yeah,
want,
why don't we take a vote amongst the five of us on which, I mean, I think we all agree that brick is our first choice, but what would be our second and third choices?
I like that stone dust look. That sounds like it would be, to me anyway. I would prefer that.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. Do we have any, projects where it's been used or pictures that we can reference?
Good suggestion.
The company I reached out to in California, I've never heard back from them, and and I asked them those questions, John, and I'd be glad to do that again. I have not tried to make contact with the company in Framingham who actually does the work, and I'd like to think they'd have some local projects we can look at. It may not be the right color or something like that, but hopefully we could come up with, they'd have some projects we could look at. I'd be glad to reach out to them.
Okay, I think that would be useful.
The walkways down in South Grafton across 122A there by the park, are those stamped concrete? Stamped and colored concrete?
No, they're not, Bill. They're actually stamped and colored, but they were an epoxy. About 3/4 of an inch or an inch of the asphalt was removed. And in that space was placed a pre-mixed epoxy that shows up in a very hot tub and gets wheelbarrowed, placed, screeded, and stamped immediately. And they've got to move pretty quickly to get the stamping in before it cools down.
and that was just on the crosswalks. That wasn't in the walkways, right?
That's correct. The 2 crosswalks that cross Main Street.
I would think that'd be pretty hard process for as much walkway as we're talking.
I think one prerequisite is, I mean, brick is super durable. It's going to last forever. I mean, really, it's going to last 50, 75 years, probably, maybe longer. I think we probably all agree on that. So we want something, I love that epoxy, whatever the walkways are in the center, but how long is it going to last? I mean, that's probably not going to last 15 or 20 years.
You mean the thermoplastic that's
Yeah.
on the crosswalk? No.
Yeah.
I personally would be opposed to that in the common. It's not something that I think is befitting of
It
this.
wouldn't be my first choice, that's for sure, but
I mean, I'm kind of on the same page with Paula. I think it works well for the crosswalks and the roadway, but I'd be leery on putting it in the pathways for the common. I think it sounds like the stone dust, the asphalt stone dust approach is a good option. And it's either we find out what a number is for stamped concrete or
Personally,
maybe we just have plan B rather than plan B and C.
I'm with you on that, John. That's my
That's
exact thought. I don't think we need 2 alternatives.
all right.
And if I may, just on the concrete, I'm not a big fan of the concrete where there's the potential for movement for tree roots and things like that, because the cracks you get are harder to repair than if you're repairing a brick surface or an asphalt surface.
Okay.
Our
That's good.
friend at the corner store would tell us otherwise, but, and I like the concrete sidewalks and all the subdivisions in Grafton. They're very durable. But again, the movement I'm worried about.
Right. And we know
Paul,
we're have to
Any
have
input
it.
that could help us?
Say it again. You broke up.
I said, Paul Canoia, do you have any input that could help us?
No. Shockingly.
That's the honest answer.
Short answer, no.
I don't want to leave you out there.
All right. So are we all in agreement then that, and we can take a vote if we need to, but that the colored asphalt, colored to mimic the look of stone dust would be all our alternative? And would we want to have brick still at the entryways if we do that?
John, Steve?
I think so. Yeah, I think that'd be, a nice touch and.
Yeah.
I don't know, could you put brick, edging to dress it up even more? I don't know if that's an option. If you went that route with the asphalt stone dust approach.
It just has to be perfectly level because of ADA regulations and all. I don't know if that makes it more difficult. Andy, I don't know, you could perhaps talk to that. Would it be harder to have ADA compliance if we had two substances like that?
Guess it depends on the detail, that's what it generally comes down to is what's that detail and how perfect does it have to be?
Yeah, they're pretty exacting. I was looking at their guidelines.
And
But the-
I'll add on that the different materials move at different rates. Bricks are gonna expand and contract different than asphalt. And what's that, over the course of a few winters, will one brick rise, another one sink, where the asphalt stays the same? It's different materials are gonna move differently, so.
Yep, that's a good point.
The colored asphalt, isn't that gonna look pretty much like concrete? Concrete?
Well, the colored asphalt comes in a few colors, according to that place out in California. And it's mixed all the way through, and there's three different amounts. They recommend, either, was it 50 pounds per ton, 80 pounds per ton, or 100 pounds per ton? It gives it more color. So it's going to kind of have the color that you're looking for, but the more they put into the mix, the redder it gets, the grayer it gets, the bluer it gets, depending on the color you use. Paul, do you have that info that I sent over to you about a week or two ago?
I'm sure I could dig it out. Do we need it right now, or are you looking for me to
No, I
resend
have
it
it
to
in
you?
front of me in paper form, but would you mind sharing it with everyone else later on, or would you like me to forward it to everybody?
If you forwarded it to me right now, that'd probably be the fastest way to find it, if you've got it open already, and then I could.
No, I don't have it open. I just
right.
have a paper. I
All right.
clicked some of.
Yeah, I'll look for it. Do you know what date you sent it? That'll help me to find it.
That I might be able to get. I'm firing up my emails. I'll get it over to you in a minute. I'll get you the
That's fine.
date and then I'll just forward it to you. Better yet, I'll just.
Okay.
But what they have is a sienna, whatever that is, eco red, rust red, bronze, and a basalt. And the basalt looks to me, the coloring on this isn't real good, but looks to be the closest to like a stone dust type of gray. And
And as
Do you know
far,
if all colors are the same price?
I did not get into that level of detail yet. I was just trying to find out what's available and is there anything on the East Coast? And then
I imagine they are, because the process is the same regardless of the color they put in. But to get to your question earlier, Bill, I don't think that it would look just like concrete, because concrete has like a pattern to it because they scrape it, and this wouldn't. He was talking about there were different grades of the asphalt you could use, and he was talking about using a finer one because it would more closely replicate the look of a stone dust.
I'm just concerned if it's really light in color, it could get stained, by leaves or dirt or whatever, and then it's not gonna look great. I would want it to be at least, not too light. But that's
That's
just,
why I was thinking more of a tan, but yeah.
well,
But we,
why don't we agree that this will be our option, our number 2 option? We can, if it comes to that, we can figure out the color later.
yeah, the color choice can be made later, certainly.
Yeah.
And are we all in agreement as well about having at the entryways, have that be brick?
I like
and then
that.
transitioning over?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Jeff,
John-
did you hear that?
I'm sorry, no, I didn't.
So our ad alternate is going to be for the stone dust like looking colored asphalt.
Okay.
We can always select the color later. I don't think it's necessary to make that choice right now.
Nope.
But then at each entryway, we'd want to have brick.
Okay,
So it would then transition over to the stone dust looking asphalt.
Okay. And, well, I don't need to know now, but we'll need to know specifically how far into the each entrance do we want to do it? In the case of like the east entrance where there's quite a bit of walkway outside the fenced area, do we want to bring everything inside the fence and then bring them all inside the fence by the same distance? You know what I'm saying?
Does anyone have any thoughts on that, or do you want to let Jeff use his own thoughts on that?
It'll depend on where the trees are too, that are the roots that may have problems. You may be
There
able to go
aren't
in
any
10
right by
feet
the
on-
end. I'm sorry, John. Finish with that.
Okay, so they're not that close to the entrance on either direction, any of the directions.
Not to my recollection. I don't have the map in front of me, but I think we have enough room to bring it like just under the gate or to the gate, or however we do it.
What are we talking, 10 feet, 12 feet, something like that?
I think maybe your gauge is where the gates are. Maybe say we bring it to just past the gate.
Yeah, I think we can fine tune that, but let's say that for starters.
Andy, looks like you have a thought.
Yep, I think you just need to be consistent. So I think it's something that, again, when he's updating the drawings, we can look at that and he can make a decision as to whether it's going to be a standard 10 feet beyond the gate, or if there's a tree there, maybe that decides what the typical dimension is. Either way, you just want to be able to define it so that people know what they're bidding.
Yep.
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right. So use your discretion, Jeff.
Okay. Right now, I'm thinking we would start the brick at each of the 4 wheelchair ramps at the east, west, north, south, and then bring brick into the common, and that from the fence point, we come a certain distance. I mean, now I also was thinking maybe 10 feet, 20 feet, something like that, so we could, sketch it out, see what you think. But the point is that when you're in the common, everything's symmetric, everything looks about the same. What happens outside the common and the fences, that's going to vary because some fences are close to the road and some are far away.
All right. So we'll have to share this
Right.
information with Davey trees too. Depending on how far we go in. And if we went in 20 feet, we probably would hit some trees.
Yeah, I was quite that far.
I think it'd probably be between 5 and 10 feet.
Okay.
I mean, it's got to be a visual. You can go up and look at it and say, yeah, sense, or 10 feet makes sense, or 7 foot makes sense. Just as long as they're all the same.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right.
Paul, I texted you 2 pictures of colored asphalt.
You did?
Yep.
Unfortunately, I don't have text on my computer here. It's on my phone. Let me see. Yeah.
Paul, is the spading been done?
Yes, it was completed last Monday. I was just waiting for the report and we still haven't gotten that. So
Okay.
I did send a follow-up email to Bill this morning, but I haven't heard back yet. So I imagine that report will be ready very soon.
Good. Okay.
I had hoped we'd have it for tonight, but no dice. All right, so
We beat that horse to death.
I think that's it with the brick for right now, other than, I guess that's really it with the brick for right now, unless anyone else can think of something.
Is there anything else we need to discuss tonight?
Pardon?
Is there anything else that we need to discuss tonight?
Yes, I have several other things. So one thing was, Andy, did you have any luck getting through to the telecommunications contact that you have? About the telecommunication lines, moving them to the pole that is going to be.
Oh, no, you know what? Total candor, I didn't, I've talked to him since we had the last call, and I didn't talk to him about this, but let me do that. I'm gonna
Okay.
write a note for myself right now, and I'll get in touch with him tomorrow. He's usually pretty good about getting back to me.
Okay. Paul Canoyer, did we do anything with the stump removal yet? I know you were talking the end of this month or the beginning of November.
Still on the same schedule. So it's,
Okay.
everyone's got him scheduled. The guy keeps pushing us off. So it's supposed to be the end of this week, so it's gonna be, now with the end of next week. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right.
It's not- It'll certainly be done before this project starts.
Okay. So I think the other big thing we need to discuss is the lighting. So I did finally have a conversation with the owner of Hammerworks, very nice gentleman. And I got a quote from them. So in fact, let me find my notes here. We had actually budgeted total for the lighting, which includes, let me get the actual budget open. We kind of broke it out. We had the lamp poles with the lights combined. We had budgeted 3,000 a piece, and we had budgeted for 10 of those. And then for the new light fixtures for the archways, we had budgeted 1,700 a piece, and we had 4 of those. So the combination of the 2 of those was 36,800. The lamp posts and lights that go with them from Sternberg that I assume this was Shepherd Engineering had reached out to
Yes.
Sternberg. Yeah, Omnilight. So the lamps, or let's call them lanterns, the lantern piece of the lamp posts that they quoted was $1,150. And then the lamp posts were 1,800, I believe. Yes, $1,800. So long and short is, if you look at what we had budgeted, the 36,800, and what we had quoted, we are way under budget with those lights. So in talking to the folks at Hamworks, I knew they were going to be more expensive. The Sternberg lights, they're not custom made. They're cast and then assembled by machine. They're made of aluminum. The ones at Hamworks are all handmade. They are a 20-ounce copper, solid copper that they use. And they're able to customize the light for the archways, which is something that we couldn't do with Sternberg unless we were willing to pay an extra $15,000 fee, which kind of priced those out. And if it was a huge project, it would have been negligible, but with this project, that's a big deal. So long and short is the actual price that we would incur if we were to go with Hammerworks is $29,450. So we are well under the $36,800 that we budgeted, and could certainly afford to do that. Just to compare it, if we stuck with the Sternberg lighting, which we know we can't customize and all, it would be about $5,000 less. So it's $5,000 more to go with Hamworks to get the customized lighting and to be able to create the archways the way we want them to look.
I think based on what you're describing, the quality is better. They're local. and the price differential was pretty negligible. So I personally would be in favor of moving forward with them.
Hammerworks, you mean?
Hammerworks, yeah.
Yeah, see, the way it's basically, it's 1150 for the Sternberg lantern and it's 1689 for the one from Hammerworks. So that's your difference. You know, that difference times 10. The lamp posts themselves, they can order the same lamp posts that Omnilight had quoted from Sternberg and use those. And the only fee for that would be a $30 administrative fee for his ordering those. So it would be essentially the exact same cost for the posts. The only difference is the cost of the lanterns. And you're right, I feel that way too. It's, you know, it's $5,000 more, but you're getting a much higher quality lantern that I feel will last a lot longer because copper is a very durable product. And you know, just the fact that they can customize it. I mean, that was the big thing, is being able to customize it to go with the archways.
And if
You have
there's
a photograph,
down the road,
Paul?
I'm sorry, I couldn't catch that.
Do you have a photograph of what they look like?
I don't, but you can go on the Hammerworks site. That's one question I had for him. He's quoted the Boston streetlight, he's calling it here. I see it on their site as being the Bedford light. So basically, the only thing that's different from like the lights that you see in front of the townhouse is that the top part of the light is copper. That I think you had asked about that before. Could you have glass in the top of it? Because some of them, like those ones that we have in front of the townhouse, have glass in the top. These wouldn't. It would be copper on the top, but it's a very common design. You see a lot of them in Boston. And the thing is, in order to have this work for the archway lights, you can't have the glass on the top because he needs metal to attach it to the archway.
Gotcha.
So Paul, I'm
Well,
looking at their website right now.
Yeah.
They just have model numbers. Do you have a model number that you're referencing?
It's called the Bedford light. The name was in it. If you scroll through, it's the only one that's a coach-like lantern that's got the metal on the top.
I just typed in Bedford. I didn't pull up anything.
Well, like I said, he's calling it the large Boston street light here. So I can get him to get us a picture of it, but what I did was show him the ones that I sent you before from Sternberg, and what they're quoting us is one that looks essentially just like that. Included in this quote, easy for me to say, quote is for them to be painted black, just like
Okay.
the other ones would have been. The posts are black, and so it would match.
So did you say it would look similar to the ones behind the townhouse?
If you look
Except
at,
for except for the glass panel at the top?
right, it would, yes, essentially it would be very similar to that.
Okay, those are nice.
It looks, if you look at the, I sent you the spec sheet for the Sternberg light a while back. I could resend that too if you guys can't find it. Essentially looks just like that. It's got a finial up at the top. It's very traditional coach lantern.
Alrighty.
All right, so it sounds like we're good on that, unless anyone feels we need a vote on that.
I just want to add something, Jeff, Andy, I can't remember what the wording is, but in the spec,
Oh, no.
if you want a specific light, you're gonna have to write that into the spec.
Yeah, it already was in there for the Sternberg lane. We just have to switch it out with this. I'd have to get those details to Jeff, and he has to share them with Shepherd Engineering, just so he can take a look at them and make sure that they'll work. I don't see why they wouldn't. And we're using the same post, which would have the outlet in it, just like before. So,
I just wanted to make sure that the description was in there so they didn't have the option to choose something else.
yep. No, you're exactly right. We do have to have that in there.
And just for clarification for me, you're gonna be going with Hammerworks for all the lights, not just the 4 archways?
Yes.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
I will refine this quote with him tomorrow. And then I'll send it to you, Jeff, to share with Shepherd Engineering.
sounds good.
So the other thing I want to talk about with regard to the lighting is how we're going to include this work, whether we're going to include it in our quote. I know we had talked about having it done separate, but there's some crossover here that we need to address. So the gentleman that's going to be building the archways is not an electrician. He's going to build the archway and he will connect it all up to to the granite pillars, but he's not going to do the electrical connection. So we're going to need to have an electrician to do that. And then the other piece of it is, before he can even mount that thing in there, we have to make sure that the electrical connection comes in, goes up through the one of the pillars so that we can connect it to the light. And he'll have to tell us which pillar it will be. I'm sure he's going to have a consistent side to it. But that means the pillars have to be drilled. So is that something that we should include in the spec? I'm thinking it should be included in our RFP, that they do all that. So they get the wire up to them. Then the gentleman from Mod Ironworks will come, he'll install them. Then the electrician would come in and connect them.
I agree. I think it would have to be in there.
Jeff,
So-
Andy, you're the experts on this.
I'm just trying to digest it. I just want to make sure, so the town of Grafton, the Historic District Commission is going to supply the archways. And then the contractor has to install the archways and do the wiring.
No, not installing the archways. The Mott Ironworks will install them, but they won't do the wiring. So we need to have the wiring go up through the granite posts. And then he will, feed that up through the tube when he installs the post, but then we need the electrician to actually make all those connections.
Okay, so whoever wins the bid provides the lights, wires the lights, hangs the lights from the archways, but Mod Iron, working directly for the town of Grafton, will install the arches. Is that correct?
They don't mount the lights. He's
Right.
going to mount the light into the archway and do all that. It's really just the electrical connection piece of it. But you bring up a good point when you talk about that. If you're talking about the contractor ordering the lights, that may be an issue too, because it takes 8 to 10 weeks from the time that you sign the invoice and pay the invoice, because you have to pay up front for them to do their work. We may want to order the lights separately so that he can get started on that. Otherwise, it's going to drag out the project at the tail end.
Understood.
These are the things that, the details that we need to.
And these are the details that we have to have in the bid documents and enough information so that the bidders know, even if they're not supplying the archways or the lights, they know what they're working with. They can estimate how much labor they have. They'll need to do whatever it is they're gonna do with these, and they can figure in their materials as well. And we've got to be very clear in the language and in the specs and on the plans. Again, back to Andy's point earlier about it's not unusual for owners to provide certain information. Our job is to make the bid documents very clear.
Yeah.
So I'll be looking to you for,
Mm.
and then I've got to get the language on the plans and we can work.
I'm- I'm happy to help with that too.
Is drilling, it's the drilling gonna be a difficult task?
I know it can be done because there are places that sell granite lamp posts with holes drilled, they're 8 feet tall and they're drilled all the way through.
Yeah,
So-
those are granite lampposts that are not in the ground yet. So there's a little bit of a difference.
Yeah,
It's gonna
they'd
be
have to
harder.
come out of the ground, wouldn't they?
It's,
I
yeah,
don't,
that's gonna be interesting. I'm not sure. I gotta wrap my head around that one to figure out how that gets done, but we'll figure it out.
would it be easier to buy new posts that look like what we have and have it pre-drilled? Oh,
Maybe, I don't know. I think I gotta talk to, I gotta see who I can talk to brainstorm on that one a little bit.
yeah,
There's gotta be a way to do it with them in place.
it would only be 4 of the posts. It's not all 8 because the wire only has to come up one side.
Kind of
But they
depends on what
wouldn't
kind of
match.
wire has to get run through it.
The color of the granite wouldn't really match. I think you'd have a tough time matching.
Right.
And those are probably the only original posts in the whole common that
I
survived.
don't even think those are original. The only ones that are original are in the center. You can still
That's-
see
well,
where
that's
the archways were cut off. You can still see the metal in the posts.
I would think you'd have to go in from the side and then down from the top.
Right.
Not these posts that you can buy new. They're drilled right through, top to
Right, but I
bottom.
mean, the ones that are there to drill them.
Oh, unless you took them out.
Take them
Unless you
off,
took
take
them
them
out.
up
yeah.
out of the ground and drill them that way, but that seems like an ordeal.
Might not be. That might actually be the easiest way to do it, but we'll have to think about it. We don't need to figure it out here.
Yeah.
Is there any consideration for putting the conduit on the outside of the granite post?
I don't-
Last resort.
Not
I don't-
preferential.
Last resort,
Not
right.
when we're
Yeah.
spending $750,000 to do this.
I'd ask.
It's an
Well, I mean-
interesting detail.
If it turns out to be really expensive, really difficult, then we might have to consider that, but for now,
Someplace like Kamasi do that kind of work, Andy?
Yeah, like there's people we can definitely talk to. Yeah, I don't know. I've got this. They could potentially, the other thing besides having just conduit on the outside of it, you could potentially cut a groove into it so that if you had to, worst case, you could have the conduit sitting in the stone, so it wouldn't be sitting,
that's-
even if it was outside, you'd still see it, but it wouldn't be quite as obvious. So I
Yeah.
don't know, we'll have to think about a few different versions of that to see what makes the most sense and see what's plausible.
that's not a bad, alternative.
Right, could work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Jeff, do you think it makes sense to have the lights not be a part of the bid and order them separate?
If the lights are driving how fast the archways are being constructed, and if the town's providing the archways, then I don't see why not have the town provide the lights and the archways.
And I'm just thinking if they start in April, and they order them right away, you're talking 8 to 10 weeks before they'd be ready. You're already into June, middle of July,
Yep.
before they could even think to install them. My one concern is I don't know what the cutoff is for requiring us to bid separately for the lights. Actually have a public bidding process. Is it 25,000 now, Andy?
It's not necessarily, there is a value there somewhere, but it's also, you can do it, but you can only do it on a limited basis. Like we couldn't end up with half of this thing being, sole sourced. So I'd have to look at the bidding regs a little bit closer to see what we can do there. Cause we just have to be careful about how we do it.
The alternative is, we could get just the 4 lights that he would need for the archway so that he's not being held up doing his work.
Right.
That might be the way to go, especially if we've got a make and model number for the lights. They can't get it wrong.
Right.
Right.
How do we do that though, so that because as long as and I guess goes back to what Paul was saying before, as long as we have it spec'd out in the plans, there's no, they can't go to somebody else and try and get a separate light, right? They have to go through who we
Right.
pick. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Until you start thinking about all the details on these lights, you don't realize how much is involved.
And it's worse to get these questions in as requests for information from the contractors during bidding.
Right.
Yep,
'Cause we're under the time gun to answer them.
much better to do it now.
Right. All right. So Andy, you got a few takeaways from this. What do we got? You got the telecommunications piece,
Yep,
and then the electric connection for the going through the pillars.
the drilling of the granite, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else?
I think that's it at the moment.
Not like you don't have anything else to do.
It's all good.
All right. So, did anyone have anything else on the project? Anything that we didn't go over? I know we got to wait for Davy Trees. Once we get that, I will make sure that that gets out to all of you. Hopefully it doesn't change anything. I'll certainly give him the input about our add alternate so that he can be thinking about that. And so what's our next steps then, guys? Help me through this.
Can't think of anything else that we haven't covered.
Well, in order for Jeff to finalize the engineering plans, is there anything else, Jeff, that we need from you? Have we given you enough guidance?
I've got guidance. I'm reluctant to get started yet. We'll need the details on model numbers and all that goes over to Shepherd. Anything that we need to get from Shepherd, I'd appreciate that stuff earlier rather than later, because I got to rely on him for his schedule of getting his plans done. He doesn't feel that this is going to be heavy lifting on his part, but I'd like to be very clear what we need, one round of revisions from him and off it goes. Anything
Okay.
site related, I've got much better control on that. There's no need for us to jump into the plans yet. We still got to talk about the brick material, how far in they go, and so on and so forth. So I think we need to continue gathering information. And one thing I'd like to talk to everyone about is the route for the distribution of electricity from the central panel to the lights. But on the set of plans we have now, once power came into that central panel, it was going to be distributed. Bear with me for a second. It was going to be distributed pretty much on the east side of the walkway that runs north and south to try to avoid as many trees as possible. We could change that to the west side if you think there's even fewer trees to avoid.
I think we'll know better on that, Jeff, when we see what that route analysis shows.
Okay. My point is, if we know there's certain trees that have to come down, and right now, based on what Davy Trees has done so far, is more of the trees are coming down on the west side of the walkway than the east side. So my point is, I'd rather consider flipping this, all these distribution conduits to the west side of the walkway as well.
Okay. Move from east to west. So we should probably meet again once we have that report. And have Bill Stendrop join us for that. You
Yeah, I
guys-
think- Now, the next meeting ordinarily would be a little over 2 weeks.
Week before Thanksgiving, so that's November 19th.
Oh, yeah, so
So that's
about 3 weeks from now.
three weeks from tomorrow, right?
So that might be too long. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so, because we got to get Jeff to be able to finalize his plan so that we can do the RFP. What do you guys think if we,
Why don't you, as soon as we get the information from Davey Tree, why don't you send out some emails as to availability?
okay,
Okay.
yep, that works for me.
I mean, I'm pretty available, but I can't speak for everybody else.
You know, if we meet earlier, then we'll just have that in lieu of our normal meeting. I know we're gonna get meetinged out.
Yeah, but
All right, we'll do that. Andy, I saw you, well, first of all, are we all done with this topic, and can we, I know Jeff probably has other things to do.
I do. I just want to let you know, Paul, I forwarded to your Mass Mutual email, the email I sent on October 16th with the colored asphalt information.
Okay, all right, I'll just-
The first email went to your Captain Scarlett email.
okay, I'll find it
Okay,
and disseminate it. Thank you, Jeff.
thank you.
So Andy, you had sent out something about the library. I didn't even
Yeah.
get a chance to read it.
No, so I sent out a couple of things. It was the asphalt choice that we had brought before you guys before, just so you could see that and remember what we had looked at. I sent you the shop drawings of the windows and storefronts and doors. That's kind of a lot of information, but it shows every window and door on the exterior on the project, as well as the color sample that was selected for those windows and doors. So nothing new there. The thing I still owe you guys is the exterior lighting. Talked to the architect on Tuesday of this week, and they're still futzing around with some ideas about what they are trying to select. So I'm trying to get something out of him so he can at least give me the options that they're looking at, so that I can share it with you guys too.
Okay.
Just another note on the construction, the brick has started, the new brick has started. So if you're coming by at some point, they're going a little slower than I'd like them to, and they won't probably get anything done in the next couple of days just because of the weather, but the new brick has started. They're using the same brick as they used that matched the existing building and the same mortar as well. So it's looking good so far.
Excellent.
nice.
Mm. I guess, Bill, the only other thing is I can think of, unless anyone else can think of anything else, was I did send out minutes. I don't know if everyone saw them. They went out late this afternoon.
Paul, can I jump in for a second? I do have something completely
yeah.
unrelated, well, a completely new topic, just because we need something else. Darrell Roberts, Parks and Cemetery, wanted me to mention to you guys, I'd like to remove or change out the shrubs around the World War I monument. They're overgrown and not very attractive for top of Millbury Street. If you'd like, I can have him put together something that he wants to propose for replacing of those shrubs and get it to you guys for the next time, or
Did you say the World War II monument?
not World War One.
World War I monument.
It's that odd shaped rock, right? That kind of
Yeah.
Correct.
The egg.
the egg. What's there now, Paul? I can't really picture anything there.
He mentioned it today, and I'm with you, Bill. You drive by it 1,000 times, you don't really.
Yeah, I can picture the monument. I can't picture the shrubs.
I'll have, try and get some more information, have him provide a lot more information than what he's proposing as well.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Open the discussion so we can get going, in the spring.
Yeah. That'd be great.
All right.
All right, so, do we need Andy and Bill for anything else, or can we let them go, guys?
Andy and Paul, no, I don't think so.
Oh, did I say Bill? I meant Paul, sorry. You think I'd get that one right?
Okay. Good to see you all.
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Have a good
Thank you.
night.
See ya.
Appreciate the help.
Night. Yeah, so unless you guys can think of anything else, it's just the minutes that I think we need to look at, and I don't know if everyone's had a chance to review them yet.
I got one thing.
Okay.
This is actually for John Stevens. He's gonna have to unmute.
What you want?
The owner of the country store requested his plaque for the building.
Do you have any left?
Sure.
I told him it was sequestered somewhere in your basement.
It's not in the basement. So is this Mr. Dauphiné?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I'll
He
work
painted
with Greg.
when he painted the building, he took down the Boy Scout burnt wood
Mhm.
marker, and
Yep.
he'd like to put a new one up. And he asked me about it, and he goes, "Where do I get those?" And I said, "Well, one time ago we commissioned those plaques, and I think I know where I can find one for you."
1865, wasn't it? That building?
I think it's older than that. I think it's older than the townhouse, and that was 1863.
You are
Yeah.
correct, Charlotte, 1806.
That's an oldie.
1806. Okay, I'll talk to him. Do you have? I don't know if I have his contact stuff.
I can get you his cell number so you can text him if you want.
Sure.
Okay.
So it's the Boy Scouts that did those burnt ones, like what's on the townhouse?
I have no idea. It looks like it does, though.
Yeah, I never knew who had done that. I guess I still do. All right. So did anyone have a chance to look at the minutes yet?
I really haven't spent more than a few seconds. I
So-
think we approve them at the next,
Yeah,
official.
that was going to be my suggestion too. So yeah.
Yeah.
Can do that. I actually sent the 3 sets that we approved at our last meeting the next day, and I've yet to receive confirmation that they've received them. They're in a bit of disarray at the clerk's office right now with upcoming town meeting and
Yeah.
the assistant
I
town
think the
clerk.
town's in a bit of disarray.
Yeah, I forgot we didn't have an accountant either. I knew the town clerk, the assistant TA, the TA, and who was the other one?
Town
one-
clerk.
Yeah, there was one on it.
Clerk's off, yeah.
Yeah, so unbelievable. Oh, and the town moderator. That was the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So is
But
town
I-
meeting still this Saturday?
I know it's Saturday, but I don't know what time. Is it 10 to 2 or something like that? Or is it 2? Or I can't think that they'd hold it that late.
I don't know.
And I looked on the town site and I couldn't see a time. It had the date, but didn't have a time. I'm sure Joanne could tell us.
Trick or treating canceled?
Yes.
No.
What?
No.
It's not.
Uh-uh. No. Worcester, yes, but I don't think Grafton.
I'm not answering my door to anybody. No, we don't get anyone anyways on Carroll Road.
We're gonna
No
put a
kid-
bowl
It's not,
on.
not a
Yeah,
safe street for trick or treaters.
We'll put a bowl of candy out and let the first 5 trick-or-treaters take it all.
Yeah. That's, you're just supposed to leave it outside.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Individual bags.
Yeah.
I find the kids really like it if you put out toothbrushes, Bill. They really appreciate that. They
Apples,
won't
apples.
egg your house.
Yeah.
Mandated, you can only put out hand sanitizer.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just gonna stand at the end of the driveway and spray them with bleach. Bye.
Most of the hand sanitizer out there now smells like pure alcohol anyways.
Yeah.
Ugh.
This is the year that we shut the lights off in the house.
No one's at home. No one's.
we
at
know
home.
which house to wrap this.
Put dark
Having
blankets under the
Sunday
window
night.
so you can watch TV and have that. Yeah.
They better close South Street this year. I'll be pissed if they do.
Oh, I doubt it. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been fun. My bride is waiting for me to watch an important TV show. So,
right.
is there anything else we need to do?
The only one other thing I almost forgot to mention is I did get a text from Roger Trahan, just relative to what's going on in the common, asking if we're using something other than brick, and will we share the details and whatever. So I just let him know that we hadn't finished our review, and it was premature to say what substance we were going to use for the walkways at this
Right.
point, and that we would loop him back in once a decision had been made. So we should probably, once we know where we're going, is just plan to meet with them.
Sure.
Makes sense. All right.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
What time we got? 8:23.
Sounds
So
good.
moved.
Right, second.
Yay.
Yay.
I mean, aye.
All right.
All right.
I
All right.
All right.
guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
Chatting with you. I'll be
Yep.
in touch.